Hello, hello. Welcome to today's stream. Hi, everybody. Let's see who showed up. Hi, Lux. Hi, little demon girl. Hi, Beefcake. Hi, Midnight. I see you in there, Koi. How's it going, guys? Welcome. Today is a very interesting day. It's a little bit different. So, today I will be doing, for all intents and purposes, a lesson. So, woo, here we go. The lesson is not just about art, but about the program of Photoshop itself. For anyone curious, I have Photoshop CS6, but most of this can still apply to any other program, Krita, Clip Studio Paint, even Procreate, but you're not going to have a lot of features that are in here for Procreate. But you get the idea. So, thank you guys, my live people. Thank you for bearing with me for this. This is going to be a lot more than normal, but you'll you'll see as we go. And for anyone who is watching the recorded bit on YouTube, hello YouTube. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this helps some of you out. Hopefully it's still pretty entertaining, but I don't know. I think I'm a pretty unorthodox teacher, but yeah. Originally I was gonna just do some quick videos, very specific for Photoshop, and the way it ended up turning out was just, it was too much for me to do all at once. So this is a new thing that we're doing where we have this little art club every last Wednesday of the month. So I'm gonna have to explain to you guys how this is going to work, but it is going to be a new thing that's here. I'm gonna take notes in case there's a test later. You go for it, Lexi. All right, so let me bring over my Discord. There's nothing over here y'all can't see. Oh, excuse me, can we just have me have it the normal way? Thank you, I appreciate you. So this is Discord. This is essentially what it looks like, hopefully not in the way of anything. So when you enter, you will get a nice little welcome sign. Yay, awesome, go to the bottom, sign your life away, click all the emotes, and you should have access. Now, we do a lot of things here. We do book reading, we do art, we do gaming. We're just a bunch of nerds that like a lot of things. So, if that seems like your kind of community, we're it. Come on in. We are happy to have you. So, for the most part, you'll get a lot of different things in here. There's the information tab. You have my stuff. You have my art records. You can see the last things that I did personally. You've got my weekly updates. I do keep you guys updated on a lot of things. There's announcements for super important things, like I'm going to be on vacation from February 13th to February 17th. I'm going to be in Hawaii, so that's a whole other issue we're talking about later, but regardless, y'all need to know. Then we have our live notifications that are not only for me, but some of our closest and most amazing friends in here. I need to add little Demon Girl to that one too. Remind me to do that later, Demon Girl. Then we have our cosmic community. We've got pet stuff, image share, art share, recipe share if you like cooking. There's voting for all kinds of things. We have a book club. Oh my, oh my, oh me, oh my. Yes, we read and we vote on the books that are read. We have a D&D bit that is kind of closed at the moment. We have a Void community. Void is all the gaming. We have our typical stuff, we have specific games, and we have group gaming. Anybody's welcome to show up to all of that. Celestial community is pretty much all the streamy bits. And YouTube, so there you go. Twitch, YouTube, here you are. You get our Twitch channel where I tell you what I did that day, if anything. Subs only get their own little chat for specific things. And then there's this one called Art Club. It's got the pretty pale blue heart. Ooh la la. So, in this, I explained to you pretty much how it's going to work. Yes, it's a lot of information, but it's not that bad. Point being, first 2 weeks of a month, you get to post pictures. Any pictures. I would prefer one post per person, but since this is brand new and nobody knew what the hell was going on, I posted 2 options. I have an original character from one game here and an original game from one game here. Then after a certain amount of time, you get to vote. Everybody clearly voted for the blue one. Yay! So today I am going to be showing you, and I will give you the image in case anybody does want to actually follow along, the portrait or picture or whatever we're going to be doing that day. So that's pretty much what that is. This is where we are, this is how it's going, and this is episode 1. Everybody have fun. So let's see here. Any questions, comments, or concerns so far? We're cute nerds, okay? Yes, you're very cute nerds. One of us, one of us. I stream way too many times. It's fine. Multi-talented in the house. Well, I would say, please do not say talented. Definitely skill is fine. I don't work any harder than anybody else, and this exact type of streaming, these episodes are going to prove it. So if you're into it and you want to learn, this is the place to be. So first and foremost, open whatever beautiful little program you have, easy peasy. Everything's going to be a little different, but it's all generally the same. Go to File, go to Open, and click on the picture you want to open. For me, I have quite a few open already. But for me, it's going to be, of course, our portrait. This is our big portrait that we're doing. Ooh la la. Same thing that was in Discord. Let's be surprised. Not. So, obviously, Photoshop or most programs, you can pull on the bottom right, make it bigger, smaller. You can also use commands. Mine is for Photoshop and for Windows, not for Mac. I apologize. But if you hold down your Alt button, you can zoom out while clicking. Or if you let go of the Alt button, you can zoom in. Ta-ta. Shortcuts make things much easier and nicer in Photoshop. You will learn each and every little thing as we go along, because trying to just teach you guys everything from where it is just a big, complicated thing. So, either way, open your images. I have lots of images. This is the original image that I showed everybody in Discord. It's much bigger than it appears, but I like to keep things kind of small. It's not that important just yet, but we're going to hold on to that. Girl, you are humble, and I love that. It's true. I mean, nobody's born with this shit, you guys. Like, we're not born able to write. We're not born able to draw. Everybody learns how to do it all the same. A lot of us just spend a lot more time on certain things than others. So it's fully, easily capable, and you guys can find other people on YouTube. Everybody can learn. People are like, oh, I've never been an artist. I never went to school for any of this. And they end up becoming an artist, and they go professional in actual gaming stuff and all that. It's very fancy, but it's not, something that's just there. Everybody can learn. It's so simple when you have the formula and the fundamentals, and pretty much the formula is practice. That's literally it. All right, so for Photoshop as well, I do want to mention, I have the basic layout, everything you see around me. Most people can change or add things or mod their Photoshop so it looks different or it feels different. Our action bar is right here. You can pull it, you can move it, a lot of people do. I like to leave mine against the side right here. This is what it looks like. These are all of our tools. The top is, of course, navigation with a few extra tidbits. We'll get to those eventually. You should have a navigator automatically in the top right here. It pretty much shows whatever picture you have selected at the time. All of these are different files. You can move them around. You can place them in the actual frame where it's stuck there, but most of the time I like to pull mine out and just leave them wherever I need them as we go. The only thing that stays in the main area is the, of course, piece that I'm working on. We'll get to that. You should have a basic color swatch down on the right underneath navigation. Underneath that, you may have to choose and find it. There's a lot of buttons and things on the side. Find your history. There's history, styles, and adjustments on mine. I like the history so I can see where I'm going back through my steps. We'll get to that in a minute as well. The next big one at the bottom here, this big thing, is layers. And there's going to be a lot of layers. I will try to keep it as minimal as possible, but in a full-blown illustration, you can expect at least 30 to 100 layers. So, that's a thing. Any questions, comments, or concerns about the look or feel of Photoshop? I should probably mention the bottom part here, not important. It's used for animation, and currently we're not doing animation, so we don't need it. we're humans after all, yes. Good so far, okay. Even if you guys are not here for any of the actual instruction, I appreciate you playing along. So, first things first, we're going to open a document. Some people like different sizes and things, but my basic one, and this works for all across the board, including Procreate, because it's not too big and it's not too small, but it gives you enough space to work and have a nice sized picture. So for us, it's File, go down to Open. Actually, no, I lied. I usually open. File, New. New. Let me pull this over here. When you're making a new document, it's going to have a name. I usually just leave them as untitled because it's going to save, and I'm going to change the name wherever I save the location to, so not a big deal. You can leave it, you can name it right now if you'd like, does not matter. The important parts are the width and the height, and I keep it in pixels, okay? My height is going to be 2,800. Can you stop it, mouse? Thank you. My width is going to be 4,000. Now, that's, of course, if I'm doing a landscape piece. If we're doing a portrait piece, which we are, reverse them. The width is going to be 2,800. The height is going to be 4,000. Your resolution, this is also called DPI, needs to be at least 300. I do 350 because I like to have big pieces that I like to print. If you intend to print anything, at least 300 DPI. But again, I do 350 because I'm crazy. Other than that, that's all you need for your basic presets. It's going to open in the last piece that you clicked. Don't worry about it. It's normal. This is literally why before I start stream, I organize all my little files because it's a pain in the butt. But anyways, you can see at the very top here, it says Untitled. It says 25%. So that means, and I'm going to take my little magnifying glass here, I can zoom out. That's 12.5. That's 8.33%. You always want to at least be, it's going to be 33%, 50%, 66%, and 100%. Your percents change based on what's going on. If you want to see it in the real size, 100% is the way to go. So I put mine up here. The file is going to show in the very corner where I can mess with it. I messed up over here. Well, anyways, if you accidentally did yours landscape like I did, go up to image, down to image size. No, I lied. The image rotation. This is all easy, I swear. You can change and move your stuff. You can flip your canvas horizontal, vertical, whatever, but I'm turning it clockwise, counterclockwise, whichever makes you happy, as long as it's standing up and down. Remember back in grade school when they said fold your paper hot dog style, or you fold it, hamburger style, because it wants you to know the difference between long and like big. We're doing the big style here. Thank you very much. Height IRL or no. Hi Jam, welcome to stream. Now, this is the absolute beginning. This is where most people are going to have a really, really big issue. I have a very nice trick for this, okay? So, if we go over to our tools on the left-hand side, and I apologize if my mouse kind of disappears. I have two screens. Anyways, you're going to take your paint pouring bucket. This should be very familiar. This is the paint bucket tool. It's in every program, even Paint itself. And then you have two little colors. The black is the foreground, the white is the background. That means whatever's on top is going to be the color we have, which is great. So you can click on your piece. Wow, black, but we don't want black. So what you're going to do is click on that beautiful black color. It's going to give you a color picker. I definitely suggest somewhere in the middle for your gray. Press OK and fill it with that. Starting with a gray canvas does not blind you as if starting with a white canvas. That's problem number one. Don't ever start with a white canvas. It's terrible. But, some people do. Whatever. Do whatever makes you feel good, I guess. Yeah, that's my favorite part for sure. And if you are prone to headaches, migraines like I am, this will save your life. Now, another thing we need to go over. It is entirely possible to do really awesome things in Photoshop with just your mouse. I made these images with a mouse before I could draw. I took some random pictures off of the internet. I used the color bits here and, painted all over it. But I did a very good job. I was very, very careful. You build up the muscles. You can color things. It's nice. But I don't recommend drawing with a mouse. So in this case, if you do not have a stylus, and this is not a Cintiq, a tablet, whatever, this is going to be very difficult for you. Not impossible, but difficult. So that being said, when you do have a stylus, you can go to the paintbrush tool over here on the left in the tools. It's just a paintbrush, not the paintbrush with the arrow. That is something entirely different, just the paintbrush. It is going to give you, of course, your nice little, let me adjust real quick, paintbrush. And when I say paintbrush, come back to your colors over on the left. Now you may use black if you would like, but, oops, yes, I know, shut up. But here we are. If you are using your stylus and it is not giving you this tapered effect, which I should probably use this mouse. I don't have a highlighter for my mouse. That's why I'm telling you guys where it is at what time, so I apologize for that. But anyway, if you do not have this tapering effect, there are a few things you can do to fix it. That's why I say when everyone buys a tablet or a stylus, everyone thinks, oh, you just plug it in and it works. I wish that were true. It is not. Make sure that you have your settings correct. Make sure you have the correct brush. Right now, I typically have the basic brushes that you would find in our list. Nothing different. This is all pre-programmed. That's the good part. I'm not going to use any fancy brushes with you guys. So you're always going to use anything with pressure. So you can have soft pressure size, hard pressure size. Pressure opacity is what we're using right now, I think. Or no, we're using size. If you use opacity, it's more like this. This is the painterly effect that I generally work with, or you guys will see me work with. The reason why I use the size bit over here during most of my line art work is simply because it looks the best. So, a lot of people will argue Photoshop does not do line art well. I agree. If you want very fancy line art that doesn't pixelate or fuck up too much, choose to use a program that specializes in that, like Clip Studio Paint. But Photoshop, I believe, is meant more for painters. So we are the painterly type here. I am sorry about that, but that's just the way it's going to be. But anyway, having your stylus should mean that up at the very, very top up here, right under our navigation, there's a few things based on what you click. So clicking the paint bucket changes everything that you see. Going back to the brush changes everything that you see. The most important bits in this little section are what brush that you're using, which gives you a nice drop-down menu. Perfect. Your size, your hardness, and all of the things. There are quite a few that are pre-done, I should say. But if I do use any specific brushes, like some of my fancy ones, I will teach you how to upload them, but we're only going to do stuff as needed. I'm not going to give you a whole Photoshop rundown. This is meant to be a very easy, obvious class. Most of your other settings are going to be fine. Opacity 100, definitely make sure. But there's another little button. It looks like a checkered thing with like a circle, a checkered circle with a writing tool of some kind. So when I hover over it, it says always use pressure for opacity. When off, brush preset controls pressure. Make sure you click that on if you're using a stylus, or else nothing is going to work. That is one of the other things that is going to give you this nice tapered effect. So if for what other reason your stylus does not work, troubleshoot it. But I will say, for Photoshop in general, if you're trying to do something specific and you cannot figure it out, Google it. It is actually quite easy to find all the things you need on Google. If you cannot find it on Google, then I would look for somebody who has Photoshop and ask them. Don't forget to draw the important bits. Tennis racket. Something like that, yeah. Alrighty. My live people are about to have an ad. I apologize for that. But the rest of us are going to keep going for what we're doing. So, that being said, make sure you have your settings correct. This one is probably the most important one. And it's going to be in File, up in your navigation. Click on it. go, or actually I lied, it's not going to be the file, it's going to be the edit. It's a very long one and I have a bunch of stuff in the way, but work with me here. If you go all the way down, there is one that says preferences. It will open. Click the general tab that's open. It's going to unlock this nice little piece for you. This is important because this is where you're going to find a lot of things that you may want to change, but this is also very advanced. Don't worry about it until there are things that you definitely want to change that fit you as a person. So, in our preferences, we have a nice list on the left. General will show you pretty much all of the basic options. Next is interface. It will give you some other varying options. This is also where you can change the color theme. So if you notice that where my chat is on the side, I may have my piece, but my side is really dark. You can change that color theme right here. See, you can change the color of your Photoshop. So again, if you're like me and you are prone to headaches and migraines, please change your color to what fits you best. I don't like working in the pure dark one. The just dark gray works for me, but that's where you change it. You are welcome. Now I'm going to ignore file handling. We're going to click under performance. In performance, this is your memory usage, etc. So if you have crashing problems, this is where you want to change things, but that's not why I'm here. I am here because if you look in the history and cache section, which is on the right, it'll show tall, thin, default, big, flat, history states. Ta-da! This beautiful thing called history states, you want that to go as far as it'll go. Put it at 1000. Why? This will make sure that you can erase and go backwards and backwards and backwards. For those of you that know, that is Control-Z. But instead of just doing Control-Z, which only goes back one step, you can now do Control-Alt-Z, and it will go back up to 1,000 times, up to 1,000 steps. That is how we make sure we can go back far enough to fix our shit. Press OK. Now we're ready to begin. And you can tell on the middle right side over here, here's my little history. It's not very big right now, but that's the important part. My history will now show up to 1,000 steps. It's awesome. So, anyways, now that that's the quick jump to for Photoshop, mostly, I will get to every little bit as we go. So, that being said, you can have one size of your brush. There are a few keyboard controls you need to know. Y'all know these buttons? This one is big, this one is small, and I apologize for that not looking well. So, if you press the small button, it's nice and small. If you press the big one, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, that's how much bigger your brush is going to be. So, these two buttons are the most important buttons you will probably have for now. And just to prove my Control-Alt-Z point, all of this, I can just keep going back and erase. That's how that works. You don't always need to have an entirely different layer for it. Ta-da! At least I hope that helps. Now, the important bit. We're going to start our picture. There's the layers in the bottom right. There's a bunch of itsy-bitsy buttons down here. They're all very important for certain things. The first one we want is not the one on the far right. That's the delete button, which we can't use anyways. The next is to create a new layer. You will see a brand new layer that layers itself, or names itself layer 1 on top of the background. Always leave your background as the gray background. We like it that way. And always make sure that when you're painting, you're not accidentally clicked on one, because if you click on one and you go to hide your layer and you realize, oh shit, I've just drawn on my background layer. It's not cool. So make sure you're always on layer 1. The way to guarantee it is to come off to the side in the dark gray area, tab your brush. That way it registers, hey, we're drawing on this layer. It's actually very important. You would not believe how many times I've fucked that up. So, a lot of the speed is going to come with time. I have to mention this right now. It took me, I think, a year to learn to use Photoshop, and you're not comfortable with it until about a year. So do not be upset if nothing turns out the way you want. For just this occasion, I'm actually going to show you guys the very first thing I ever drew on Photoshop, just to practice and see how bad I was. I didn't know if I was good, bad. I've just never used the program. I went from traditional, using graphite, paint, colored pencils, markers, to suddenly doing digital art. If this is you, don't panic. It's all going to suck. You're just going to have to get through your sucky phase. Sucky phase is the newbie phase. It happens in games. It happens everywhere. You have to get through your newbie phase. So let me see if I can find where I put it. It's been so long. I have things everywhere. All right. There it is. So if anyone knows Bleach, this is Tanel, or not Tanel, Neliel. Sorry. It's a long story about that. Don't ask. Had a cat. That was her name. Don't ask. Anyway, this is Neliel. Nell. This is me just taking a brush and doing the basics, seeing how bad anything is. I didn't even have a good size. This is 300%. Look how pixelated it is. But you knew that, of course, I knew the basics, right? I know how to draw. I know how to draw people. Like, it's fine. Dynamic-wise, forearm here, trying to be dynamic, not so great. Like, there are things that are very clearly not great. But again, it's a part of using the program. I can paint over this today in a matter of minutes, and it will look far different, far superior. It takes time. It takes practice. You are going to suck. Get over it. Keep going. Because trust me, all these people that watched me back in the day, when did I start digital art? 2018, you guys? Is that when I got my Cintiq? I think it is. So from 2018 to now, it's a lot better, we'll say, right? Let me just close this. This is my last piece. This is also my background. I made my last big art piece my background. But anyways, this is Xalatath from World of Warcraft. She's a lot better than where I started, right? Let me see about getting a closer picture of her, just for the sake of making you guys not feel that bad. Oh my god, specific people, Zally. This is why you take those social progress pieces, so we can all see what's going on. Alright, here we are. Excuse me. So yeah, we went from not understanding a program to understanding the program. So, what does that mean? Well, it simply means that the rendering pieces got better. It takes time. It takes practice. I do not want you guys to give up. So, please don't give up. Just keep practicing. You don't need to do studies, by the way. I mean, I'm going to mention this simply because a lot of people go, oh, you need to do your master studies. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to get a picture of a piece of cloth and try to paint it right next to it. Okay, that's like basic art. You technically should do that stuff, but do you need to? No. My recommendation is do the basics, but if you come across a material or a thing that you have never done before, that's the time to do it. So, in my case, actually, for Xalatath, I'm a character artist. I'm great with characters. The background / environment, it's the first one I've ever done, first one I ever bothered to do. And my character fits into that environment. That's never happened for me before. As you could tell with the Neliel piece, it was just a giant green blob of stuff. I'm not a background environmental artist at all. So it's a thing. But when you reach the piece that you have no skill at, it's nothing you've done before, that's the time to do it. And I say this with, all the love in the world, but take it with a tiny grain of salt, because I'm doing my own graphic novel. The reason I wanted to do digital art in the first place was for my graphic novel. So like I said, these pieces were done in Photoshop. You can do a lot with pictures in Photoshop, but I did not know how to draw in Photoshop. So this is where we are, and this is how I'm teaching you that this is okay to do if you're not in that state. So now we can move along to the actual point of this whole thing. I do apologize for those of you that have to sit through this, but again, I appreciate you. So, portraits in general. I'm going to take my brush and up at the top left here, I'm going to select the hard round pressure size. Again, like I said earlier, this is the best brush in Photoshop, I think, for sketching and getting these things out. So, portraits. Everybody can argue that a portrait is simply a headshot or it goes down to the shoulders, etc. Portrait is a generalized term. Don't let people bully you. You can do whatever the fuck you want. But portrait does imply that there's gonna be a face there. Okay? Okay. Easy peasy. Now, there are a lot of people that would very much not recommend what I'm about to recommend. You can take your move tool, which is the very top right up here, click on this image and drag it to the piece that you're working on. It will also give you a very good idea of the size of the piece, or the size difference, I should say. Oh. So, to fix this, press Control T. This is for transform. It's going to give you a whole bunch of little squares around your picture. Press and hold Shift and pull to make it bigger on the corners. And apply. You simply apply by clicking on the image itself. Easy peasy. Now, a lot of people don't recommend this next bit simply because they think that it's either cheating or it's wrong, and it's tracing. You know, tracing is how you learn and build the muscle memory and get those aspects in your brain. So I definitely do recommend it, where most people would probably say no, but that's just a thing. It's a very controversial topic, and my opinion is very much in the minority. So anyway, now that we have our image on our canvas that we're working on, if you go over to the bottom right and see the layers, you'll notice it makes its own layer, layer 2. You can name this piece, you can do whatever you want. If for whatever reason I need it on here, I double click on it, and then you can use your keyboard and I type reference enter, and it changes the name of your layer. I don't really care about naming my layers unless there's something specific, or if there are so many that I'm trying to keep them organized. Again, I'm going to use my Xylotath as an example. She was her own folder with a million layers. The chair is its own folder with a million layers. So, keeping things organized is a good idea. You don't have to be super organized in the beginning, but when you start getting further along, I do highly recommend it. So, speaking of groups, we have our layers on the bottom right over here. Now, if you go to the very, very bottom, again, you have the delete, you have the new layer, and then you have this little foldery thing. If you click on it, it will create a folder. In order to place something in said folder, you want to click on that layer, hold it, drag it up into the group, and to make sure that it's in the group, you can either toggle the drop-down menu, or you can simply use the little eyeball and erase it. Or not really erase it, it just goes invisible for a minute. It's fine. So sometimes I will put things in a folder. There's my reference in a folder, easy peasy. I will click on my layer and then click and drag. Now, if you drag far enough, it'll show that you're going from either putting it in the folder or above the folder. I usually put it above the folder. Now, for my folder, there's an itsy bitsy bit up here. It says opacity and fill. Your opacity, you can either drop down menu and use your slider, which some people do. It will change the opacity of the picture that's in that folder, or whatever's in that folder. Or you can simply mess with the numbers. A lot of times you guys will hear me mumble. I'll be like, oh, 80%, oh, 50%. This is usually what I'm mumbling about. So, like I said, this is some of the things that I don't mention when I'm actually working for a reason, but you do catch on to some of it. And some of you have over the years. You're just like, what is this thing you're mumbling about? And oh, never mind. You don't want to know. But anyway, so our folder is currently, I'm going to put it at 50. We're putting it at 50%. That way you can see your image. And again, you can zoom in, you can do your things. But again, all of my tools, every time I click something, is going to be over here on the left. So back to my brush. Yes, you can use your brush to mark and get used to all of the bits. Oop, don't mind that. If you press the buttons on your stylus, it will pull up whatever you're using, which happens to be the brush palette thing. So anyway, anytime you guys see me do that, you'll see me do that and I'll be like, oh no, don't do that, stop that. This is me arguing with my Cintiq that I'm pressing buttons that I shouldn't be doing. So I am not against people tracing, quote unquote, to learn anatomy. I do recommend it. You will learn over time the spacing between things, etc. Let me get my eraser here. Woo. Same with the eraser. The eraser brush has its own nice stuff, but I just use a nice big eraser, easy peasy. So if you would like to trace, I am not against it. I highly recommend it. It builds the things that it needs, your muscle memory and the memory in your brain, where things are and how they look. So that's what's going to make your life a whole lot easier in the future. So, and then for those of you that don't want to do that, don't worry about it. It's a lot of muscle memory. You know, it's kind of like playing catch. You have to learn where the ball is going to come. You need to learn the physics of how it's going to approach you. You don't have to worry about physics here, but there is still some serious hand-eye coordination going from looking at whatever your reference is on the side to drawing it over here. So some people don't have that built yet. I do recommend the tracing for building that skill. So let's see here. I do apologize to my live people. We are doing a very specific tutorial kind of stream, so I apologize, but thank you for bearing with me. Hi, I'm McGonagall. Hyper-realistic art. Yes, kind of. We're just doing a portrait, but I'm teaching not only the art aspect, I am teaching Photoshop specifically. So for those that have always wanted to, this is the way we're doing it. Just opening up and we're getting into the things that matter. How about that? I'm off to bed. You're all amazing, wonderful, beautiful people, and you're awesome. I'll try to remember all this tomorrow. You can try, but it takes practice too. It's perfectly all right. That is why this specific episode, this is episode 1 of our art club, is of course going to be on YouTube. So again, for those that are following on YouTube for this recording, I apologize for the repetitiveness, but this is how live things go. Anyways, you're an awesome teacher. I would definitely sign up for classes. Oh no, there's no signing up. You're just here. Yeah. I'd definitely sign up. I love your direct approach and different techniques and the details you go into. Thank you. I do think I'm very unorthodox for teaching, but yeah. It's all about the hardware, all the things that are needed to do it, all the physical things, the stylus, the Cintiq, the stuff, and then you have all of the software, but people don't really get into any of it, so that's kind of where we're at. I'm getting the basics down. This is if you have a Cintiq and you just want to open up your Krita or your Procreate or whatever and you want to learn stuff, this is the way to do it. So anyways, for those that do have the skill and everyone who wants to talk about fundamentals, here we are. This is how I approach doing a portrait. So this is how it's gonna go. Again, you can either do the tracing bit or you can do it this way. It does not matter. A lot of people have seen me do this in sketches. Yeah, I think you guys saw me do the pandas, right? The pandas were rough, but anyway. Try to do whatever works for you. I'm really not big on doing the same thing every time I work on a piece. It always depends on the piece, but you can map out a face for the most part. So this is, of course, remember our let me duplicate this layer and make it bigger. This is our layer 1, okay? So any way that works for you to map out a face is perfect. So since our reference is our itsy bitsy girl here on the left, I'm going to look at her, look at where my hand is, which is on the left side of the face, by the way. I know it's hard to see because I don't have a big big piece on the stylus right now. This is, again, like I said, what it looks like. I'll make it a little bigger. So I'm going to try my best to follow the shape, right? So her eye is going to be around here. Don't worry about it being messy. Like I said, if anyone has ever been to my other streams, y'all know I'm messy. I'm for sure messy. So you want the basic bits. Anything that I'm looking for is going to be, okay, forehead, eyes, cheek, mouth protrusion, and chin. That's all I really look for. And a lot of times you're not going to get the shape the way you want it. So just press the eraser button, which is right here. It's going to be underneath the clone button. Clone looks like a stamp, so there's the eraser. It looks like an actual eraser. Remember those rubbery erasers we used to have in the 90s? That's what it looks like. Now switch back to your brush, fix your lines. And a lot with digital art is simply cleaning up your lines. So don't feel bad about having messy sketches. Again, I have so many examples. Let me get the example of Xalatath. Where was my initial sketch? Right here. This was my initial sketch, you guys. It was beyond messy. I mean, the face doesn't even fit, to be honest, but it was close. The idea was there. You have a smirk, you have some eyes in a lot of darkness because, yeah, who wants details? And then the shoulders. I did the shoulder shape, and then I went over with a white brush to do the actual details. But look at this. Look at that armor. Does that look like straight line to you? Not at all. The fun thing about, again, digital art is that you can go from doing all of this like this, like we're looking for the beautiful straight line that, line art you're not really gonna get. But Photoshop and Painterly bits is nice because you can have the terrible sketching and you're painting on top in layers. So sometimes you will go on Twitch and see a lot of people. You guys know I recommend Illyria V all the time. Illyria does this. She's Painterly. Not a lot of people really do the line art bit. And of course, if you see me removing steps, this is my Control-Alt-Z that we talked about. You can see my history. I went back 2 steps to remove that chin because I didn't like the shape of it. So this is the fun part with digital art. It's not as finite as everybody believes it to be. It's not the end of the world if you don't get things done properly. It's really not. So a lot of it is going to come out pretty much just based on how you work as a person. So for me, some of my work is very line arty. We have seen that with Little Demon Girl's piece. So you will see me go back and forth from the left over here. It's literally just the eraser brush and the brush itself, so don't mind me. I may do it very fast, so I apologize for that, but other than that, I'm coming in here and erasing the parts that I either don't want or don't need, sometimes both. Now, because the piece that I'm working on is actually going to be this girl down here, her name is Xylus. This is one of my gaming characters. Hello, Xylus. She's very much elf horn. She's actually what's called a castanic. This is from Terra, if I believe. But anyway, there are pieces that you're not going to see. So for me, she's got this nice little flip of hair, which is really pretty, but not what I need. And my lines over here are not where I want them to be, so I'm just going to erase them. They're not perfectly necessary, but they're necessary enough that I can just adjust things. All adjustments, very fine, okay? I just want to mention that for sure. So, a lot of times, I don't have a specific button or a shortcut on my keyboard to switch between specific things. So I do not use keybinds, I guess, for my brush, my eraser brush, my magnifying glass, or even my little hand tool, which if you hold on to it and it'll pull up a thing, you can come down to rotate. You can now rotate your canvas, which is a big thing for those of you like me who came from traditional art. But anyway, so a lot of times if I'm suddenly brushing and then suddenly erasing, it's me actually physically moving my arm over and grabbing the thing to move it. So Just be aware. It's, like I said, speed comes with time. There's a lot of that to deal with. So, either way. Okay, let's see. You can always either use a line and redraw stuff over here to get your lines to be accurate, or another Photoshop tool, which I believe they now have in Procreate, is called Liquify. So, for us Photoshopians, we are going to go up to our navigation bar at the top, up to Filter. We're going to click on it, go down to Liquify, click on that, and it's going to give us this weird non-background impromptu piece. All of your controls are over here on the left, and then the right side pretty much just has other information, which is like brush size, blah, 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 blah. We want the magnifying glass. I want to zoom in so I can get a really good look at my lines. Now, I can still see my reference over here on the side, and you can change the size of this, by the way. Like, it doesn't have to be insanely gigantic, but big enough that you can see what you're doing. Now, you have a little hand tool. You can use your hand to move things around, but what we want is the glove with the finger that's just kind of like smudging. That is exactly what we want. And again, for our brush size, we can use those buttons that I was showing you before, those brackets, to change the size. I'm going to make mine a little bigger. It's going to change the giant size of my brush here. And Liquify tool itself is you pressing on the line and it is moving the pixels. So that's essentially what it is. So you can play with it. You can learn how the piece works. A lot of times if you push it too far, you notice the lines will get smaller. That is just a thing. You can also press cancel and not do that at all. But sometimes if you need just fine-tune adjustments, that's the way to do it. You would want to use like a Liquify. But in my case, I'm really, really good at just drawing and moving my strokes and just erasing what I had before. So this woman has a very high cheekbone. We're working with it. But this is how I generally work on my pieces. I tend to do the work and then the cleanup afterwards. It's not always necessary, but it's nice. And see, it looks much, much nicer right there. So, a lot of basic stuff, like I said, you're going to learn as you go. You don't need some grand, that is the hard one, right? Yes, it is, okay. You don't need some grand masterclass. You don't need master studies. All you need is to do it on the project you're working on. So, don't come out of the gate trying to do commissions. Just do some stuff, some art for yourself. It's my best recommendation. So, a lot of my bits here are almost where I want them. You know, in my painterly way, just scratch, scratch, scratch across the whole thing and get them where I want. Now, if you are big into doing the line art part, you can of course come back, make your lines thicker. That's always a thing. Sometimes I use line art, sometimes I do not. Like I said, I'm using line art right now for Little Demon Girl's piece, and I am not for the Pandaren piece for those pandas. So you can sit here, you can mess with your lines all you like, but that's not the type of person I am. I just like to get into things very quickly. So now we're going to pick up the pace a bit. I do apologize, but I hope everybody can bear with me. Let me move these because these are different sizes for my screen and it looks weird. All right, so basic stuff. Middle of the face, eyes are here, so we're going to come up and we're pretty much just marking, like I said, what did I say before? What did I say? Like it's just, it's marky bits, I don't know. What did I say? I don't know. They're like placeholders, okay? You're placing a hold on all the things. So that's essentially what I do all the time anyway. You're not going to have it perfect right out the gate. It doesn't matter. Generally, an eyebrow goes here. It's all you need to know. Work with it. If it looks like an eyebrow, you know it's an eyebrow. It's an eyebrow. And already I'm going to tell you what's wrong with my piece. There's not much of a top head. So you already know there's not a lot going on there. It really sucks, but it's fine. I'm following my shapes as best as I can. This is generally how I work. Oops, don't want it that big. So again, you don't have to have good looking stuff right away. It is completely fine. Follow it, do it. And this is actually how most of my stuff does look. A lot of you just don't see it because I do this particular type of sketch by myself. I try really hard not to do like too much in the way of putting everything together. It's really frustrating for me. This is the struggle part. I don't like people to see me struggle, but most people, actually a lot of you guys, a lot of you that have been with me for years have seen me struggle, so it doesn't even matter. Which is why we're here where we are now. All right, so we have some mapping of a face. It is clearly not where it's supposed to be. So in your tools over on the left hand side, you'll have, it will either be a box or an elliptical, but anyway, it's a selection tool for or marquee. You want the one underneath it that looks kind of like a hoop. This is where you can drag, and I'm dragging around the mouth here specifically, and you can select things by just drawing around them without it being just a circle or a square. I mean, you can use these tools, you know, square, square, square. And if you accidentally do have a selection and you don't want it, just tap on your screen, it'll go away. Same with the drawing one. But also with the drawing one, I just made a circle around the lips. Here's a shortcut. If you press Alt or Shift, it will either reduce or add to what you have. So if you've ever seen me work on a big piece and I'm rendering and I'm doing stuff really fast, this is generally it. I have taken my lasso tool, I'm going to hold my Alt button, and I'm going to go around that nose piece to deselect it. Same with the side over here, just to make sure. Now, if I wanted to add more, like say the chin, I would hold Shift and it will change the shape. So, easy peasy, that's good, but that's not where I'm at right now. Right now, I want to change the slight bits. All you have to do is select, and then up at the top, take your, it's kind of an arrow with a whole up, down, sideways kind of thing, to move your stuff, and it's only going to move the selection if you have a selection. So that's a good thing to know. Now, where's my space? There we go. All right, this is important for the head, okay? So I'm going to take the piece pretty much above the eyebrows, this whole top head bit. I'm going to select Control T for transform. I'm going to hold the Shift button, and I'm going to use it to all at once make that bigger forehead. Now you can press and hold Control, and you can use just one corner and one side. There's a lot of transformative things in this very special thing here, but if you hold Control, your mouse will of course turn white, so you would know. If you are holding Shift, then it's not going to change, but you'll know that it's going to take the whole thing with it. For me, I will either do that, or you can right click on the entire thing and it'll give you exactly what you need. Free transform, which is where we're at. It'll scale, rotate, skew, distort, perspective, and warp. Warp in itself is specific. It'll give you a grid, and this is kind of like just wiggling stuff and nudging it around, which does tend to help. If you get the right shape, great. But remember, it's still selected, so you can still transform, you can still do more. It's awesome. So, deselect to undo that. Now, if you're trying to draw after this and it's not letting you, you're going to want to go up to the top navigation, press select, and it's going to say all, deselect, reselect, inverse. Press deselect. It will be highlighted. Sometimes there's a pixel that's highlighted and you would have no idea that that was there. Why is my thing being weird? I cannot see my circle. I don't know. I pressed a button at some point and now I can't see the circle of my stuff. It's weird. Yeah, even if I make a giant piece, you can't see it now. I don't know what I did. Who knows? Sometimes I change settings by pressing buttons accidentally. You never know. But anyway, where is it? There it is. I can roll with it, thankfully. Oh my goodness. If you ever find that you're in a place, I'm going to liquefy this, by the way. Remember, that is filter, liquefy. if you're ever in a place where you're like, this is just not working the way I want it to, something messed up somewhere, it's more than likely not your fault. So I'm going to nudge this, try to get that shape back without messing up too much. I do like that a lot, but we're going to have to cut down on the chin area. Yes. All right, I'm taking my select tool. Oh my God, why is it all the same? I don't like that. And we can just move things around on the plane of where this face is existing. And it's only a face because we have these pieces already. Boop. All right, eraser, you come over here somewhere. I don't know where you are, but you're over here somewhere. Thank you. All right, much, much better from where we started. Generally for me, I think it takes about 3 to 5 sketches, like actual sketches, before the piece is acceptable. Like I would work on it on stream acceptable. So that's just how that works. But anyway, one way to come in and also clean up some stuff, I recommend taking your magnifying glass, definitely zoom in on certain areas and zoom in on your canvas. So I don't like this nose, right? No, I don't. So what happens is we're going to take a really good look at it. Ooh, this is much bigger than I intend that to be. What are we at? 30, 25? Okay. I'm trying to follow the shape. And again, I'm just erasing and using my brush back and forth, trying to figure out where things belong. So sometimes this process can take a while. Sometimes it does not. It just depends. It also depends on the piece that you're using for reference. Not everything is perfect, just remember that. But as I said earlier in this particular stream, in this particular video, the more you do something, the more you're going to get that memory of it. So that's how a lot of this tends to go pretty fast, even though sometimes people just think, oh, you're just so good at everything. No, I just practiced a lot. So here we are. We're taking things, we're breaking them down. It's all about observation. Art is pure observation. So let's see here. I've got some light. And you can make marks for light too. You know, sometimes people do sketches and you'll see they have these little lines where it's like, oh, there's a shine on the nose and there's a line, and you think, what in the world is going on? It's not that it's stylized, even though a lot of people will say that it's strictly because of it. Sometimes it's just a marker. A lot of times you don't know what markers people are going to have. You develop this style on your own. So sometimes, I will admit, sometimes this style will either stick with you or you'll leave it behind. It just depends on you, and it depends on, like I said, the piece that you're doing. Everything can change. I don't do any two pieces the same unless it just happens to be a very similar type of piece. So if you're busy trying to figure things out, you're just like, oh, okay. Just look at it. Change it. It's, how would I put it? This is what I used to tell my painting class, you guys. It's paint. Or in this case, it's digital art. It's digital art. It's not a tattoo. Do people use digital art to create tattoos? Yes, but it's not the actual tattoo. You're not stuck with it forever. Just keep going. And I'm more talking than anything, so this is making me take a whole lot longer. I do apologize, but you know. Like I said, a lot of you guys have been with me for years. You know how this goes. You just look at where your lines are in comparison to all the other things. And eventually these will all end up the same. The fun part is, look, I'm going to take the selection tool again, press Ctrl-T to transform it, and I could just rotate it at this point. I don't even need the whole thing. And then I'm going to hold Control and press on this to make it a little smaller. And I'm going to press the lasso tool again, and this will ask me, are you ready to apply that transformation? Press apply. Yes. Now look, it looks so much better, but I still don't like where it is, so we're just gonna move it. And for this, I'm actually just using the arrow keys on my keyboard. In comparison to the picture, where is it? Good spot. There we go. See? Takes a while, but it's still kind of there. I should actually zoom in. That looks So much zoomed in for me, but not zoomed in for you guys. But oh my god, it's zoomed in. Okay. And I have a very big brush still for what we're doing, so that's fine though. Anyway, you take a look at all these different things, and you're just like, what in the world, Val? I know. There's a lot of different things in the art world, a lot of them fundamentals, but you can learn all of this stuff kind of just on your own by observation. So that's why I don't think that anyone needs school for something. I mean, school, sure, but like there's a lot of this stuff that's like free to find on YouTube, you guys. Even if it's not mine, like there's just a whole bunch of people trying to help. So go out there, make mistakes, do the things. It'll all come into fruition in the end. It always does. This about there. Now, a lot of times stuff is confusing because it's mostly a, how would I put it? Mostly an optical illusion. Yeah. And a lot of stuff is stylized. So when I said earlier that you can trace stuff and it's fine, the reason why it's fine is because it's not going to look the exact same. It's going to look weird. Like if I actually come up here and trace this eye, I promise you it's not going to look the same in any way, shape, or form. And this is me using the selection tool to put this where I want it. Excuse me, sir. I need you to like skew that way. Thank you. Like actually, you know, lips are a good example of this too. So if you were to trace it and look at the actual shape, you'd probably think, what in the world is going on with this girl's lips? Well, that's because from how it looks to us, you're not seeing the whole lip, right? We're only seeing this right side. This other side kind of tucks away, and it's like, okay, that's weird. But there are a lot of weird things you'll find when you're, again, observing different things. It's crazy the amount of things you'll notice after a while. And then you'll realize that not every line is necessary. So then when you're tracing, you won't have as many pieces to kind of hold that space. So everything is perfectly fine. Like I said, you can learn these one at a time through projects, not weird masterclass weird shit. You can tell how I feel about masterclasses. Yeah. Some stuff necessary, not always. And especially eyes. Everyone hates the other eye. But if you look at it, you just realize that there's just a part that you can't see. Realize that it's just a part you can't see, and it can't, like, it's not going to jump out of the page and bite you. You know what I mean? This is more like this. Excuse me. I'm noticing things as I'm going here, so yeah. Let's fix the face. Thank you. So you don't have to do this all at once. Just as you notice things, you'll make more time to see, oh, hey, that's not what that does. That's not what it looks like. It may look like one thing, but that's not what it's doing. So, either way. Now this looks like a much better use of my space. And it looks very similar to what we've got. All right, here's another bit. We've been drawing on the same layer this whole time. This is still layer 1 if you look at the bottom right. Go all the way down. Not the delete button, but that next layer, I'm going to add layer 2. Now, I do this a lot in my sketches and in my works in general, and people have noticed. Because they'll be like, Vel, why do you use so many layers? This is why. Because I want to be able to just look at the layer without messing up what I've already done. So, I will do this for generally eyes, nose, and lips all together as separate entities, but right now we did not do that. We only have the eye. So anyways, for me, it's about noticing that this eye, in general, does get covered up. Well, the iris itself gets a little covered up by this nose. So almost right here would be a better spot. It's almost right next to one another. It's fine. You can build from where the iris is. A lot of people do this. It depends for me. I tend to just take things a different way, but for what we're doing right now, I just want to show you guys that it's okay to kind of like chicken scratch these lines out and figure it out. And this is what it looks like, figuring it out. And another thing too, notice that there's a water line. A lot of people don't really ever notice that, and it's really weird. You don't always need these details, but you'll notice in stylized art that people definitely don't follow that. There are a lot of actual art rules that either do or do not apply based on whatever you're trying to do. So keep in mind with yourself, is it realistic or is it actually meant to be stylized? And a lack of skill is not an excuse for, oh, it's stylized. No, you either don't have the skill for doing what you want or you're trying to do something else. Because there are a lot of people that do beautiful stylized work. Or here's the best way to explain this. This was explained to me by my teachers long ago. Learn how to do everything correctly. Do it in realism. Because after that, then when you change it and you want to do anime or whatever, it's a lot easier to break the rules. Okay? Now let me transform this a bit. My angle is off, but I got the idea. And a lot of you know I start my rendering off with eyes, so the eyes are important. It also seems a little small, so let's bring this up to size. Where is that in relation to that? Okay. Boom, boom. Now the funny part is the eyes themselves already look way big. Just looking at what size we have for other things. So you have to figure out at this point, is it the one piece that you just did? Oh yeah, I forgot that's another layer, excuse me. Or is it that everything else is not adding up? In this case, the lips do not add up to this proper size. I'm looking at the side of the nose in contrast to where the corner of the mouth should be. That's one reason. So sometimes it could be that what you're working on is not working. Could also be that what you did earlier is not working. It's a very, very fine balance. So I'm going to make this smaller just by looking at it as a choice. I want it right here. Ha ha. On to the next one. Erase that. Mostly. And a lot of things too, people don't take in the space right here between nose and eye and whatnot. So when you're working on a portrait itself, again, get your marked spaces and use them to essentially figure it out. So get an iris, you know you want it there, you know the general shape of the eye. That's why when you guys see me sketch, my sketches really do go very fast. Because it's like, I already know the shape of the eye. I already know what all this looks like. Why are we having this conversation? We don't. We just jump in and do it. This is when sketching just becomes an extra thing that you have to do, and you're like, oh no. So a lot of my stuff starts realistic, even if it's not. Here's a good example for this one. Getting a bottom lid, just erase and redo your line. Of course, that's a little much, but you get the idea. There are tricks and things that you learn along the way that really help. Size of your irises, etc. Eye shapes, which in my case, I'm having a hard time with the shape of her eye, but it's fine. not as big as you think over here. So, and I've actually just merged my layers. I'll show you guys how to do that in a minute, because I kind of fucked up. Why did you fuck up, Val? Well, it wasn't necessarily that I fucked up, just that it wasn't doing what I wanted. Okay, when they don't do what you want, you kind of just break them all. Tis fine. Generally, and this works as a fundamental for all things, not just like people, but like buildings or whatever, get the shape of it and you can pretty much figure anything out. But you're still going to have your struggle moments, so essentially just don't listen to what anybody says. In that case, you just keep on struggling. Look how I'm keeping on struggling right here. Like I said, it does not have to be perfect. For a realism artist, this is so not looking realistic. This is how it starts. It's just the way it is. Even if nothing fits, think of it this way. As long as you've got your mapping, everything should generally work out in the end. You don't always need eyelid wrinkles. I generally just try to keep the big spaces right here where it's super dark. Actually, let me get my thing bigger. Right here and right here, it's super dark. So when I start my painting, it's less of a problem and it's more of a, oh, hey, that's a thing and I know that already. Not that it's a rule, it's just, again, my observation. So you need to do your own observations, for sure. Because we all do not see things the same way. Quite literally. Alright, this is way over here. Because there's hardly any white on the right side of that eye. Perfect. Look at that. Here we go. We're figuring it out. Again, this is why I like the digital aspect of the art. You can change it, you can move it, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, whatever works for you. It's not as crazy as people imagine. And I'm not as good as people think. Y'all see me start probably on my third sketch, not this very first one. Alright, another thing that I'm noticing, and it's a good thing we're zoomed in on this, we're still fighting the face shape. But I think we're getting there. So this is why sometimes this takes really long, sometimes it doesn't. Again, it depends on how we're starting, what we're doing. In our case, we're just doing a quick portrait, so that's fine. But as far as portraits go, it's getting there. We're just missing some key aspects, which are, of course, just our shapes down here. And the fact that they're not big enough. Excuse me. Not necessarily line art, but not squinchy winchy like that was. Alright, so a lot of things right here. It's going to go up, in, because of the chin itself. Follow your shadows. And mostly just because it's important, again, for face shape. I'm going to tell you right now, this ear is way too low. You'll notice things as you go along. It's completely fair. Especially for the angle that her head is at. Totally fair. Oh, what are you doing, memeing history? I'm trying to back up here. Now I'm going to take this entire head as a transform and I'm going to elongate it a bit. Okay. Now, This particular step, and I realize there's an ad starting, I apologize, again, in about 5 minutes. This is where I take my whatever base sketch from a real reference, a real human, and start modifying. So, for me, that means Xylus. So, Xylus herself has horns and a much, much different hairstyle. Even though I really do like the real girl's hairstyle. So I'm going to create another layer down at my bottom right. Press that little layer button, make layer 2. And there we are. And we're going to add some horns, hopefully within the space of how this actually looks. So I'm looking at the reference, seeing how far down these suckers go. Realize the size and the impact that this makes. And I'm drawing them quite flat too. So for anyone who thinks, oh wow, she's just doing that all in the space of what the thing is. No, I'm not. No, I am not. I think it's something like this. Anyway, get your general shape. Then from there, Control T, you can change the size, you can change the shape. I'm going to hold down my control button and then skew what looks like the shape that I need it to be. That is how that works. And then I cheat. So you have your layer, you're gonna hold your Alt button, your mouse, you're gonna notice, look at my mouse, it goes from that moving button to a double button. There's a black one and there's a white one. That means it's duplicating. So now I just press and drag, and I have an entirely new layer. Ta-da! But I'm still gonna Control T, transform, and wiggle around this one to almost be where I think it needs to be. It needs to be very fakey. And I'm gonna draw on this layer that we have, specifically for this, because we're going to start and erase and do some stuff, and it's gonna be messy, and this is it. I use it for looking at, you know, like any other marker, but I know I'm eventually going to get rid of it. So the fun part is that part. This is all going to hide up in the hair somewhere, but I want the general idea. Now, how do I get that way without being a butt? Make a bunch of lines, make it messy. It's the only way you're gonna figure it out in your head. Some people like doing perspective with like the boxes and whatnot. If that works for you, use that. But definitely understand that everybody's gonna be different. So if you find something that works for you, use that. I feel like there's little antlers over here. And I still feel like this needs more angle. Yes, I know no pixels were selected. I did it on purpose. Oh, I should probably let you guys see that. Okay. So, for merging layers, because here's that left horn, here's that right horn. When you make a copy of whatever layer, it happened to be layer 2, it is now layer 2 copy in your layers on the bottom right hand side here. So select your top layer, press Control E, and it will merge those two layers together using the bottom layer as the whatever selection it is. If I had named it horn 1 and horn 2, it would clearly go down to one or the other. Easy peasy. But since these layers are still separate, I'm going to get my layer 1 in here and start erasing where I think that it doesn't need to be used. Then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select layer 2, press Control E, and merge everything onto layer 1. So everything is now once again in layer 1, because I, at this point, do not believe that I need another layer. Now, you can work on the character specifics themselves, which in this case is going to be the fact that she's got all this hair You can literally just use squigglies at this point. It doesn't even have to be perfect, but realize that some of this is going to need to be worked on later. Again, this is just a sketch. This is how the sketches work. Trying to keep in mind where her forehead is. It's not too far above where her horns are at the bottom, so that's not too bad of a piece. I'm going to erase what's here in the middle, so it's not blocking too much. There are going to be pieces of hair that want to come through here. There will obviously be pieces that go this way. Remember, we're just following what our picture looks like down here. I would definitely make this a little higher. Her hair doesn't come and make too much of a poof, but it's still nice to always keep in mind, hey, there's a lot of hair right here, just so you know. Same on this side. We're not gonna see what's behind here. You're gonna miss that horn. So yes, a lot of what we already drew is coming to its own little spot here. You're not seeing a lot of it. We're erasing as we go. This is why it's not that big of a deal when you're changing things. Oops. Now, from behind a head, you're going to see some hair, so we definitely need some of those layers. It's not going to be perfect. You don't have to work it out right away, but just know that you're going to need to eventually. So we never really worked out our neck, but that's fine. I'm doing that now really quickly. Don't need that. Again, all the same stuff. Where are we putting the markers? Mark it, mark it. Right, there's a light right here, but that's also her jugular over there. But anyway, with this character, you're not going to see too much of any of this. You will see some hair in here. It depends. I don't have a formula for how the scalp really goes. I just kind of roll with it. Again, sketch stuff, guys. Sketch stuff. But I will change where some of this goes. Yeah, see, if you have the hair here, you wouldn't see much of that horn. You'd just get the hair. Ta-ta. There's a lot of things that you need to consider, especially if it's going to be something like this where it's a fantasy character. And just in general, me looking at this, her horns are a lot bigger. But this is more or less where it is important to know what character you're making, especially if it is a commission. Ooh. Ooh. I may need to do these in pieces. In that case, nope. Well, I don't want to erase it. I just want to deselect it. Do you mind? It's like, no, I don't mind at all. Excuse me. And I think I messed that up a little. It's supposed to be thinner. A lot of it is going to be looking back and forth between what was given, either by the client or, you know, whatever picture that you want to choose to do. If in case you do want to eventually take commissions. Those are the things to think about. You need to know where and when to make your modifications. And I think the biggest issue, at least that I had when I first started, was trying to define and figure out where the problems were. You could look at something and be like, you know, this is not right, but I don't know why it's not right. And that's most of the problem, I think, when you're trying to get stuff done. And you're like, oh, I'm still new at this, but being new isn't bad. It's just understand that you're working things out and it's okay. This is not moving the way I want. If things don't move the way you want and you have to redraw it, so be it. Just accept it and redraw it. And a lot of this is going to, again, come with time, experience. Nothing's going to be perfect, and it is going to be a pain in the butt. I will tell you that right now. Alright, I am taking all of her hair, if possible, and her horns. Excuse me. And figuring out where this works in relation to the image that I'm using. I feel like that's a lot better. Okay. So the character herself has different eyebrows. This always is a thing when you're working with elves of any kind. There's very likely that the eyebrows will change and the ears will change. Those are the the most that you'll find. Those are the most that I've found anyway. So there is hair here, but I want to peek out with a little bit of a ear. So yeah, some people sketch beautifully. I obviously do not. Other people do not. Just know that a lot of people are very different. And that is perfectly okay. I wish I had, like, the best sketches ever first go around, but yeah, no. Or like a stylized kind of sketch that is just very, very gorgeous. I don't, but you know, hey. I think it's something that I could learn to do if I tried really hard, but because I don't sell sketches. That's not something for me to work on. Make lots of lines, figure it out. How's that cheek going to be? Don't forget you generally have your eye sockets too. You're going to have to put that in there when you're doing your actual rendering. But anyway, for the moment, I'm going to kind of leave it here as just a, hey, look, see, this is a sketch. Have fun. I'm doing another one here. Whoops, excuse me. Iris, do you mind? I think I want to move that forward. Move you forward. Everything is always kind of based on your own judgment, especially if it's going to be a particular character, by the way. So for me, while it's really hard to just be like, okay, I'm done, I'm just gonna be picky about it. I'm just gonna sit here and pick some stuff. Don't mind me. Now, a lot of times too, especially if you're starting, one of the things that I like to do, I would say hold on to a piece for a bit. Sit on it. Don't just immediately work on it. Because if you sit on it, you have more time to kind of understand why something either is or is not working for you, which is kind of really important for me as an artist, but it always depends. So, and also starting out, I do recommend that your reference be black and white. Color is a bit much. Do not start with color. But anyway, I'm going to double click on my layer and rename it Sketch. Oh, hello. Ah, caps lock. Is that what your problem is? Aha! That's what our problem was. I can now see the circle the size of my brush. Okay. At the very bottom right, again, I'm going to create that new layer. I'm going to drag that layer underneath the sketch. And one thing that you can do, especially when you are finally using color, is to get the reference, hold Alt, and this is your eyedropper. So if you want just the main color of, or not even color, the main bit of your thing, that's a thing. Hold on, let me darken this. If you want to directly select what you're looking for, that's the best way to do it. How about that? Now we're switching to the hard round opacity. If you make it a big brush, you can just fill it in like this with such and paint in what you need. You can also do these in layers. When I do my really big stuff, it's like, oh, here's my skin layer, this is my hair layer, this is my eye layer, or face. I do the face differently. So everything can be different. It just depends on you as an artist and what you want to do with it. So it doesn't have to be like anybody else except what you want, but you're the one who has to figure that out. For the sake of being simple and all on one layer, of course, I am just doing this all on one layer. You can lasso and fill this in if you like. You can do it like I am now with just the brush and color it in. Does not matter. Perfectly okay. Whichever style or way you prefer. And that's something I like about digital art. There's a million ways to do things. Pick what works best for you. Now, if I were to come down to my layers and press the eyeball to remove the sketch, I can see what bits are still lacking, especially in transparency. I want it mostly solid, so there we are. Step 1, done, which is usually the sketch. And consider this flat color. Here's my flat color, quote unquote. All right. Now, my layer down here that says layer 1, I'm going to double tap it, change the name of that to flat, just so I know what it is. And now there are ways of doing this in other programs, but above, if you look at all these layers on the right here, if you look above, it says lock, and it has a bunch of different types of locking mechanisms. If you press the checkered board one, that one is the essential alpha lock. When you are in Procreate or another program and it asks about the alpha lock, this is what it is. I'm going to randomly pick a color over my right here. Alpha lock means I can only paint on that layer. So if it's not there, I can't paint on the outside. I have to either unlock it or make another layer. So that being said, I'm simply going to choose a darker gray, working like this. Now this is where the fun part comes. We're going to use a soft round pressure opacity. This is where I would start as far as very carefully, like if you look at the left side here, it's a very dark gray. But this is where I'm starting as far as giving anything some shade. I always tend to start with the eyes. That's just a me thing. You don't have to. But it is very good to get those areas of the face. This is also why I like using real people for lighting, because you're getting the real light. If you want a different light source, I definitely recommend either being very good in using your imagination or using any other kind of like program. I use Magic Poser for what do you call it? iPad? I know words, just not at the moment. But anyways, I like to use the small brush and just slowly work my way in. I know it looks super creepy at first. That's a definite thing. But also on the left side over here, I'm going to use that switch. You see how it made that white as my foreground? I'm going to use the gray. Press Alt, click the gray. Ta-da! You can see that I'm eyedropping it right now. So now all I have to do is switch with this little curvy button, this little curvy arrow, and it will switch back and forth between the light and the dark. But this is where you build those layers. See, like I used a lot of the markers, quote unquote, for the nose area, so I didn't mess that up. This is where this comes in handy. Having those extra markers shows me how far I need to go and how not to be weird and have a weird nose shape because I'm not following the shadow shape of the nose. This is exactly how you make sure you don't do really weird stuff. I'll use the same thing to just fill in my lips. Easy peasy. As long as you have stuff filled in, it's easy just to go back and paint on top. This is where the painterly part comes in too as well. You're just constantly press, 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 switching back and forth. So here, let's switch that. We all know this one's lighter. And it depends. Some people like to work light to dark. Some people like to work dark to light. Some people just in the middle. This is one of those big important parts if you're doing it like this from black and white, which isn't necessary but acceptable. So if you find that the color you started with is too bright, that could be a thing too. I think this is the brightest I've ever started a piece. But it's not terrible. I'm that person that starts kind of in the middle, and then I do my shades, then I do my lights, my highlights. So, let's see here. This needs a little bit more dark. a lot of this starts to look better the more shading and light that you have. So this is also another great reason to start working in black and white, is just to get used to it too. And a lot of this you're going to find is also habit. Just from doing it all the time, you'll know where things should be placed and what shape faces make. But you could also mess up and, you know, have to fix it later too. It's not that big of a deal. Especially if you're using a stylus, I'd say just be careful. It's very easy to overdo some stuff. Just be very light. Check your settings. Make sure you're not, you don't have your settings too much, or, you know. That's how I just define it though, is much. If it's much, you would know. Under the eyes, for sure. Alright, now for this particular character, she has makeup, which makes this, like, kind of, Alright, having this for a while now, I'm starting to see where the problems are. This is why I like the rendering phase. We're pretty good with some of this, but, oof. Actually, tell you guys what I'm doing for this. So, and I have a phone call, excuse me. Oh, this is a very important phone call. I'll be right back. So sorry, we are back. I know here comes an ad for some of you guys. I do apologize. That was a very important phone call that I really needed. Okay. Yes, that's done and over with. Okay. One thing I'm noticing here is some of this needs to change. So what we're going to do is liquefy. I need to liquefy some things and move some things. I'm going to use a very big brush to just nudge. Excuse me, I need to see that. Okay. Excuse me, little sketch. But you're still not where I want you to be. Which is very nice, but not quite. It looks way better. Sometimes it's just slight features, sometimes there are bigger problems. You just never know. I just don't know how I feel about these eyebrows. Alright, I know I mentioned another thing being makeup. Makeup is always a hard point in some of these. Alright, this is still the soft brush, right? I hope so. I'm going to, at the bottom right, make a brand new layer that is on top of the flat. Now, for modes, it does say normal up here at the top. You open it and it gives you a big long list of modes, and these are very fancy things that you can do to change things. They're very useful. Now I don't know if we're going to need overlay or soft light. Let's start with overlay. Overlay is pretty solidly dark, so I'm going to quickly makeshift some makeup here, because if I'm looking at my character, there's a lot of edgy vibes. This is kind of a cheaty way of getting stuff to go the way you want it to, and things much start to look better. I don't even know how else to say that other than just much better. I also feel like the eye is not where I want it, because it needs to be higher in order to fit looking at what we're looking at. I don't want it too high though. So I'm going to do some selecting. I need to unlock my, actually I don't need to unlock my layer over here. I'm going to select the around eye area. Here's a fancy trick. Use the move button, hold Alt, and you make an entirely separate piece without messing too much up. So underneath it, the thing is still there, but I can adjust this way and at least try to get the look to be better. We just have to go back and remember to repaint these areas so that it doesn't look funky monkey. Some of this needs to be a little darker. Just get those right spots. Whoops. Be very careful. But it looks good. So yeah, some adjustments get to be made as we go. I'm going to do the same thing for the right side, except I'm going to go down because I think we ought to go down with this. Just a bit. Oh, this looks way better. A million times better. Already. But yes, just like anybody else, I'm not perfect at this. We just roll with it. It's just a lot of practice and a lot of playing with stuff. Like, sure, there are good things to know, but let's be honest, it's not all perfect. Alright, now while this seems darker down here, in my playthroughs, I can remove the sketch and see how the actual rendering progress comes along. That is an option too, for anyone who's working through it and they're like, I don't know how I feel about this. I know how you feel. Like, yeah, I don't know either half the time. It's fine. But as long as you feel like you're getting the essence of the character, you're winning. And that's where I tell people to, when they see me working in progress, I'm like, you know, I'm trying really hard to get this how it's supposed to be. If anything seems off, I generally have them tell me. Let's zoom in here. It's not technically all within the details. Sometimes it is fun to do the details, so let me get you guys up in here while I get my details. So light and shadow can be fun if you're still not really used to it, I guess. It can also be very tedious. It just depends on you. How do you feel about it? But you know, as long as you're enjoying a bit of the process, that's a good sign. If you're not enjoying the process, then I don't think this career is good for you. It's gonna be my side remark for that, but I'm very serious about it. I chose this kind of career because I wanted it. I wanted it really bad. If you're choosing this as a hobby, go slow, enjoy it. Why are you not being as... Okay, here we go. It's not being as nice as I want it to be. Now, her as a whole, I'm going to press Control U. This is going to give me the hue and saturation. Now, because I am on her layer, I can just do it like this. This is giving me more of what I want as far as like where I want the tone to be. You can also come up to the top of your navigation and go to Image. Oops, come on. Is it Mode or Adjustments? It's Adjustments. And do Curves. Curves also brings up some weird bit. You can make the darker parts darker. You can make the lighter parts lighter. Or some variation thereof. Which I do like both, but we're gonna use curves because I am actually quite a curves user. Just for small adjustments. Just so she's not that bright. We don't want it that bright, honey, I promise you. And so, actually, I just did that. Let me go back. Another thing you can do, aside from just doing the alpha lock, this is an entirely separate bit, but also same thing. You can create a new layer. So down on the layers, bottom right, I have my flat. I'm going to come here and create a new layer. It's layer 1. Right click or press your stylus mouse button. It's going to give you an entire section of options. Create clipping mask. Click on that one. And then it's going to have like this little box where it goes over and down, little arrow. It is clipped to that layer. It has the exact same effect as the just painting on that particular layer, except now you're doing it and it's on a layer that you can toggle. So on or off and see what you're doing, which is nice. So since I don't want to mess up my face, that is what I'm going to do for this one. And we're going to start painting in the rest of this part of her face so I can somewhere in here figure out if we're going in the right direction. I tend to think so, but always best to triple check and do it yourself. So this is all mostly shadow. That's lovely. Some of the shadows aren't going exactly as planned, but that's because it's not perfect. I'm going to merge that layer onto our clipping layer onto the first layer. Oh, alpha lock. And you take the alpha lock off. There you go. And then you keep painting on it. That's how you fix that. That's what happens. Turn the alpha lock on when you don't grab that the right way the first time. And the fun part about working in black and white is you can actually see a lot of this. as it's going, which is nice. Don't need an entire trick here. So you just pick and choose pieces, spots that you see, and start filling them in with whatever color you need at that time. This is where I just start painting because I'll select something and keep painting with it because you just never know. And slowly but surely, as you zoom out, it hashes itself out. It's not perfect, but it definitely is a way to get there. So the things that are important. Character irises. We also want the black. There's always a shadow, and there's a shadow around the eyeballs themselves because they are not just in there, they're flat, like on paper. They're actual balls, they're eyeballs, they're round. Most of these I just fill in. It's not too terrible. So here we go. Shade around the ears, because these are definitely not just pure white. We all know that. Again, shadows and highlights. Get your shadows, get your highlights. Most of this should look pretty normal from that point. So again, I'm not worrying about colors, at least not yet. Get the shadow for the horns, always fun. Nothing over there. Okay. Again, get bits that you notice, but don't worry if it's not perfect. A lot of the highlights are going to help emphasize certain like structures, certain pieces, how they look, that they're round or flat or whatever. All typical stuff. Certain highlights make things look better. Oops, it depends. It's also very subjective. So if you don't like something, that is perfectly fine. So you build, you build, you build. It eventually gets there. It's still not perfect, but I mean, this is generally where my stuff ends up, so we're good. All right, horns. Keep in mind this is all still very quick. I don't do portraits just in a day, at least not anymore. I don't think I haven't in a while. Unlock my alpha here so I can keep painting in the right spots. But yeah, I used to also be one of those people that would be upset with how long it took me to work on a piece. I got pretty fast at it, especially the portraits, which is nice, but honestly, in more recent years, I've really learned that fuck it. If you want to take the time to make things a lot nicer, if you want to not be in a hurry, then that is also perfectly okay. I think I do my best work when I'm taking my time, which is partly why I started, like even if I do portraits or a big piece, it doesn't matter. I spend all the time I can on a piece. First off, because you're being paid for that piece, but secondly, you're being paid for a piece. Like, why wouldn't you sit there and spend as much time as you possibly could on it? So that's a thing. There we go. Add on these extra bits. Get the hairline. Sometimes you can add those flyaways that make things look very real. I'm still doing it in kind of an airbrush, so don't mind me. It looks terrible. Alright, I'm going to take my hard pressure opacity. This is the one that's pretty much used for hard white lines. Although in this case it's not really white, but you get the idea. Sometimes you just need it to lighten things up. You don't even need it for what you thought you needed it for. And then here's seriously such a fun part. All right, horns. Let's try to get the last details. It looks like it goes like this from one of these other pictures I'm seeing. It's always fun to like get in there and try and understand what's going on, but you never know. If we're going to go from black and white to a color, go to the bottom, make a new layer on top of your flat. Definitely create a clipping mask. Change the mode to overlay. And now you can select the color from your reference or whatever someone has given you. I'm going to use this for that. How pink are you? You're pretty pink. Okay. So overlay is good for skin. Sometimes for certain things you may want to use a soft light or something else, but just be aware. Going from black and white to color is kind of a pain in the butt. That's why I personally just work straight from color, because I don't like the muddiness. But let's see here. I'm going to duplicate my color. It's going to make it light for just a minute. I'm going to use multiply. Change the multiply layer to a different opacity. Put you under here. Is it multiply that I want? I want something from you, because I don't want my shadows black and white. Your shadows need to be a very saturated color of what you already have. So Control U. I can play with the hue on this. Saturation, that's helpful. Now mind you, that right there is the multiply layer. That's the overlay layer. Overlay, you need to be 80%. It's a good start, but it's not where you want to be. Another layer, clipping mask. Soft light mode, and I want you very hued. Okay, it's much better. It's not the color I want, but I'm seeing where I'm trying to go. Okay, change that back to normal. That's the color we want. Actually, it's not bad just for a color in general, if I'm being honest with myself. Soft light or multiply? Soft light. We definitely want soft light. Okay, so the soft light is going to help my shadows. So anywhere there's a shadow, I'm taking this weird orangey and putting it in here. That way it doesn't look freaking weird. I don't do black and white to color very often, but I will do it for commissions. Especially if it's an important commission where I really want the color to pop. You can also make your cheeks, nose, ears, whatever you want, a little bit more in the poppy section. But I'm gonna come back here. And what happens is all of these color layers that you have down here in the bottom right, you just Control E and merge them down into that black and white layer. That is how that works. So let's see here. Color for the hair. What do we want? So if I go through these modes, you have like normal, dissolve, darken, multiply, color burn, linear burn, excuse me, darker color, lighten, screen, color dodge, linear dodge, lighter color, overlay, soft light. So you can see how all of these are taking a different effect. Use your best judgment, play with it, but yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about like not having the right one or whatever. You use what you think works best by you looking at it. So that's essentially how that works. So I'm not doing a fully rendered piece, but clipping mask. You can still see my process here as I do a portrait. Now I could spend hours on this and it would look amazing, but for the sake of our classes and how quickly these are going to be going, because we're doing them all in a single day, this is the best way to do it. So oodles of fun, huh? So a lot of this is just the same stuff, same buttons, same approach. It's always going to be, oh, not that one. We want the same color for the horn, but in a different mode. A lot of people have been watching me do this like process, this same process for quite literally years. So trust me when they say, you can look away for 5 minutes and I'll have an entirely different piece. It's me. And I'm gonna duplicate the hair layer. I want an extra bit of color. Oh, there we go. Multiply and drop it to about 20% opacity. There we go. That looks more like the correct shade. And if it's not perfect, you just keep painting on top. That's always a thing. Right now, I simply do not have the sketch attached. We're still working underneath it, so it's a little messy, but you guys literally get the idea. This is going to be, yes, lighten. Woo! Glad I got that one right. So I'm using a hard brush and a soft brush because this is a glow. I have glowy horns, woo! There are a lot of different ways to do this particular effect in general anyway. But it's fine. We got what we need out of it. And actually, her lips are an entirely different color. Ha 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 ha. I do want to lighten that though. Excuse me. Excuse me. It's on lighten, so give it a sec. That's one thing you will notice with people doing art on Twitch as well. Sometimes you'll see them do something weird like this on a layer and you're like, wow, what are they doing? They just haven't put the effect in yet. Illyria does it a lot too, and it makes me giggle because I'm always like, what is she doing? I have to remind myself what she's doing. All right, let's see. That's darken, multiply, color burn, linear burn. Oh my god. Lighten, screen, color dodge, lighter. Ooh. Overlay. See, overlay works for that one, but it's not the right shade. We're gonna just that hue. Oh, I love it. Brightness. Oh my god. Perfect. Now, if I took it off of overlay and onto normal, this is the color that it is. So you know that it's different. Get that soft brush for the sides. And if that's not working very well, you can always do the soft brush opposite as an eraser. And like, if it's too much color. It always depends though. But since I darkened her lips because I was using it based off of her, that's the whole thing. So that's another thing about commissioned parts in general. Sometimes you have to decide what's good to keep and what isn't. But if it's a commission and somebody wants something specific, you better do what that person asked you to do. That's all I could say. Alright, now I'm just going to paint on top in general, because there is a particular look to this character and I want to make sure I have it. She is just dark everywhere from what I can tell. It's like, oh, dark here, thank you, thank you. You don't always need to do details like the little squiggly bits in irises. A lot of the time I just go for the color or effect of the light. So for me that literally just entails doing the rings around the eyes, getting some details but not a lot. If it's a portrait, I would go into super detail, but this is probably the only time I would. If it were a full-size piece and we were honestly going to do a whole thing, I would not go for the details at all, because you're not going to see them. There'd be no point. Some details though, like those water lines, very important. You can also lighten some of that. We know what that is. Excuse me. Excuse me. And if any spots need highlights or, you know, like an update of a highlight, whatever works. Sometimes you can like fake highlights, which is nice. I don't want too many sparkles, but some sparkles. It just depends. So this is what I would call a color sketch. It's still quite sketchy, but colored enough. So if I take off the sketch, you can see the rendering, but it's not a full render, especially since we still have those lines. But that's how that works. And I would recommend that no matter what, even if it's an itsy bitsy sketch, find a place, sign your work. So there's mine. Quick, easy peasy. There are all kinds of things I could say about my own work right here where I'm like, the hairline's not close enough, blah, blah, blah. You know, there's fixes. There's always fixes. So, you know, you will be your own worst critic. So just understand that it's going to take a lot of time. It really is. And a lot of preferences are going to be used. Like my preferences, I like a shine on the lips, on the upper lips right here. And the nose, there's a highlight right here that a lot of people don't really pay attention to around the nose, but if you just do a little bit, it's nice. Okay, a little. Come on, Cintiq. So everybody's got preferences. It depends. You'll notice them as you go. It's also what I would call stylization, but here we are. Partly done, still kind of cute. And generally when you're all done, like I can either save it and all of my layers here in the bottom right are going to stay the same, which I'll probably just do that. So let's get that done. Sometimes I may also merge it, but I like to keep my layers and I keep my Photoshop files to myself. I never share them. There will be other professional artists who may share theirs, but I do not, simply that I can prove I'm the one who did it. I have the work in progress. So anyway. Go up to File, Save As, And that's just my personal preference. I like to save as bit. Let me find where I put those files. So have your own area where you want to put stuff. I have Art Club. So I have Xylus. We will have other people as we go along. So right now, again, if you look down here, it is still untitled and it is a Photoshop file. Now we can name it. So I will name this Xylus Portrait. Come on, Portrait, thank you. Art Club. Save it as the Photoshop file. And you cannot see it because my little person is in the way, but it will do a bar and it will go across in blue. That's how you know you've saved it. So if you are saving a PNG, it's a bigger file. It's going to take longer to save. Just give it the time to save. Don't jump into it. Don't try to exit Photoshop. You will not have your save. Another thing I like to do. Again, remember what size this is? This is a 4000 by 2800. So, what I like to do, okay, let's take all of this. I'm just going to do this at once. I'm going to make it fit a little more specifically on here so it looks like a good portrait. There we go. Beautiful. We're clipping in some split spots, but it's not the end of the world. All right, we're going to go up to the top at image. Remember how we did the image rotation earlier? Now we're doing the image size. Okay, so you will see your image size exactly as you have it, your resolution, everything. Make sure that these little things are clicked down here, especially the constrained proportions. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to take my height from 4000 to 1000. It will automatically change my width to 700. So the size is the same, but it's a much smaller file. So now when you zoom in, it's very pixely. This is what I call a smaller version. Now go to File, Save As. We have our portrait, we have the full size version. But down here, change your Photoshop file to a JPEG. And I'm going to name it, as I had all my reference options there, Xylus Portrait Socials. That lets me know that this is the small size. This is the size that I can post on Discord, that I can post on Instagram, and it's a smaller version. So even if somebody steals it, I don't give a shit. They have a crappy version. So keep your big version for yourself. If you need to do your big version, do it. If you have already sized your stuff down, remember, Control-Alt-Z, let's step backwards. It's going to size it to the correct size. Then you can save it again as the proper size if you need to, which I'll probably do that just to show you. Save as. This is also a JPEG, but this is the big one. So we're just going to do Xylus Portrait, and I do final. When it says final, that means that's the one. That's the one you do stuff with. So now if I were to open my files, you see the Photoshop file, you see the final, and you see the socials. So I can pick and choose from whichever I like to post where I would like. And I do always tell people this. I especially tell people at CAE for this. When I post those pictures, it's like, you guys I give them the big version, and I will give them a small version, but I will tell them, do not post the big version online ever. That is you, that is yours, that is your piece. So that concludes today's episode involving portraits anyway. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you would like a chance at some possible free art, well, I mean, all it takes is your participation. Remember to go to our Discord, get into the Celestial community, which is the streaming bit, go to the Art Club, make sure you get your posts in. The next posting time is going to be February 1st. So on February 1st, you can start posting your portraits. I always make posts in Discord, so be sure to just pay attention to that. If you don't like having a lot of notifications, I will also remind you guys, you can set your notifications to either the mentions only or turning off the notifications at all of them, just to make sure that it doesn't bother you and you can look at it whenever you like. But do know that when the little red bit pops up and something's going on in the channel, it's probably going to be art club, book club, whatever, gaming stuff, all kinds of shit. We do all the things. So Either way, I hope you enjoyed your class for today, and I don't know what we'll do next week. Next art club, which will be, let me see, February 26th. Next art club is February 26th. But either way, you guys get to post your characters. You all get to vote. Whatever vote wins is the piece that we do, and I plan on what we're doing then. So anyway, any questions, comments, or concerns, again, join Discord. Leave them for me in Discord. And if it's YouTube, leave them for me in the comments on YouTube. Hopefully this helps, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Have a wonderful day, and I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Bye-bye.